Hi, I'm Dr. Doug Weiss, and today's topic is porn-induced erectile dysfunction, PIED. Now, if you're a man and you're suffering with this is going to help you a lot. But if you're a partner or you're married to someone who is struggling with this, I really want you to invest the next few minutes so that you can understand this topic better and understand it's not about you, and maybe give you some tips on how to walk your way out of porn-induced erectile dysfunction. So stay tuned. Now, if you have yet to subscribe to all the hundreds of videos that we have for you, please hit the subscribe button. There's so much help and encouragement there. And if you have a question, please fill in the little box. We'll be happy to respond to you as soon as possible. So stay tuned. Porn-induced erectile dysfunction. That is a really big, hot topic now, because now we're facing a whole generation of people that are having erectile dysfunction, not at 60. I mean, we all, we hit 60, we hit 70, we're 50 maybe. We're talking about hormone imbalance. We're talking about testosterone being low. We're talking about weight issues and all kinds of depression issues over the course of life that could be affecting your erection. But when you're 20, what is going on? You're physically fit, you're healthy, your hormones are high. This shouldn't be happening to me, Dr. Weiss. I should be able to really be able to be a great lover to my partner or my wife. What is going on? Well, the porn-induced erectile dysfunction is really new, because before cell phones, rarely would you have access to pornography 24/7. And not only pornography, the most bizarre, the most variant types of pornography ever created in the history of the world, all at your 8-year-old finger. Many of the guys watching this, you grew up with a cell phone. You grew up with an iPad. You grew up with technology, which has its advantages, but has its disadvantages. And here's what happens. Now, first, let's talk about your brain, and then we'll talk about the impact of pornography on your brain that impacts you in your erection. Because your brain is actually a huge sex organ. All right? Now, the issue with the brain is it's developing. So when you're 8, 9, 10, it's still growing. Actually, there's parts of your brain, especially the prefrontal cortex of your brain, that's involved in sexual attachment and release and pleasure, is still developing into your early 20s. So what you're doing to your brain is you're conditioning it. Now, probably never before in world history were 8-year-olds and 9-year-olds and 10-year-olds exposed to sexually explicit material on such a available basis than the generation we're in right now. So you're unique. Your dad had to, go across town into a dirty bookstore. Your grandfather had a deck of cards. I mean, it was really hard to get pornography until it became socially acceptable. But now, even really good, caring parents give their children a porn store called a cell phone, and they don't put porn blockers on it. So you find these pictures of naked women and men and all this kind of stuff going on, and all kind of variants of group sex and bondage and kind of stuff you would never have seen even in an adult bookstore 35 years ago. But now you are watching that on a regular basis. So your arousal template in your brain is getting aroused by multiple stimuluses, like hundreds and hundreds of stimuluses. And here's the thing, it's developing as your brain's developing. So you're not waiting to 18 or 19 or 20 to have sex and have it inside of a context of a relationship and learn how to negotiate relational sex. Relational sex is not what you're having with your cell phone or your computer. It is object sex. Now, object sex is a really different kind of sex. It's unique because what happens is the images that you're looking at, You bring them up into a fantasy screen in your head, and you might make up a story about them. You might just be having a huge load of dopamine hitting your brain just because nudity and that stimulus all by itself evokes a high level of dopamine in your brain. And so what happens is you're getting this really big chemical hit at 9, 10, 12, 14, 15 years old that you can't get any other way, and you begin to associate attachment, desire, and yearning for these images. And not only that, if you start ejaculating to these images, which most guys do, right, you begin to set up a very high reward, the highest reward system that your body has in a developing brain, attaching it to object world. I call it boo-boo mommy or boo-boo daddy if you're watching the men, because that can happen to you as well. You know, first you're looking at the single girls, then the couples, and then the men, and the bodies you're looking at are not in the normal range. Okay, there's all kinds of variance there, and you don't possess most of the size that you see on the screen, and so that opens up your whole mind to emotional insecurity and all kinds of things that go on there. So here you are, you're developing, you don't even have pubic hair, and you're already attached to an object world. Now in the object world, you decide what goes on. You decide what you want to look at. You decide what fantasy you come up with. You decide the outcome. You decide when things happen. And it's all about you. It's about you, you, you. So you're learning, and you're actually chemically reinforcing a very self-sex life. Not a mutual, interactive, intimate, connected, negotiating a relationship sex life. You're just going, opening the door to this world, and it loves you, it adores you, and the psychological impacts. I mean, I've been working with sex addicts for over 30 years, and most of you know who I am, okay? I've been a recovering sex addict for over 35 years, and which means no porn, no masturbation, no sex outside of marriage, taking a polygraph to prove that. I'm the president of the American Association for Sex Addiction Therapy. I'm the executive director of Heart to Heart Counseling Center. People fly in to Colorado Springs and do intensives 3 or 5 days every week of the year. And so I've been doing this work for over 35 years. I have taken more masturbation porn histories than any man on the planet, bar none. Okay, I've been doing this for 35 years plus, every week, going over guys' histories, masturbation, pornography, because I deal with sexual addiction. And many of the people watching this who have porn-induced erectile dysfunction often have a sex addiction or have had one, where they're going to this other world and they're getting their sexual release. They're doing this hundreds or thousands of times. Now, when I do a masturbation history, is when it started, how often was it in junior high or elementary school, in high school, in your 20s, 30s, etc. Literally thousands, sometimes multiple thousands of times. You've had sex with an object that you don't have to negotiate. You don't have to be emotionally, spiritually present. You don't have to make any commitment to. You don't even have to talk to. And you get the highest pleasure reward of sexuality in this very object empty world. And that becomes your sexual reinforcement, and you actually hijack your sexual attachment things, the templates. And we have a whole video on sexual templates. I'll talk about that a little bit later. But you're actually creating a sexual template for object world, a self-serving sexuality, which is totally different than when you come to a real person. You can't get an erection. She talks. She wants to negotiate her needs. She wants to have an orgasm. She wants you to last more than a few minutes, because it takes most women many minutes to have an orgasm, 10, 12, 14, 20 minutes for them to orgasm. She wants foreplay. She doesn't want to just, have it over in a couple minutes. She wants you to be kind to her before, during, and after. She doesn't want you to get up and leave and go do the next thing as if she has no worth or no value. She wants you to speak kind things to her. She doesn't want to be used as a piece of meat, a thing, an it. She wants to be loved and connected to. And you have no skill set for any of what I'm talking about. You haven't had to learn that. Because in the fake world, in the porn world, none of those skills are necessary to get the same exact reward. Now, it's not exactly the same, because once you learn how to have relational sex, and we'll talk about that in a minute, you can actually have the best sex of your life, amazing sex, way better than object sex could ever be, and way more fulfilling and way more satisfying. And I've worked with sex acts for over 35 years. I've had thousands of guys tell me, Dr. Weiss, there is no way I could have believed sex with my wife would be better than what I was doing in the porn world. It is so better, Dr. Weiss. Thank you. The tips you gave me about having the best sex, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, changed my life. This is fantastic. And they learn how to talk to their wives, connect to their wives, and they really have a fully satisfying sexual encounter. Now, if you're struggling with PIED, you're not experiencing that. Just even starting the sexual process can create a lot of anxiety for you because you don't know if you can perform. You don't know how to negotiate this real person. And so your anxiety increases a lot of stress for you, which reduces the blood to your penis. So now you have a problem. Your blood's going in every direction except for your penis. Or you start, but you can't finish because you have to go to the imaginary world. Okay, and there's a lot of guys who, when they're having sex with their wife or their spouse, especially if they have sex addiction, 50 to 95% of the time, they're actually going to the fantasy world or old pornography videos or other encounters, or scanning their wife and creating a different encounter in their brain while having sex with their wife. And oftentimes that's the only way they can ejaculate is in the same altered state they've created in the porn world. So in this altered state sexual reinforcement that you have created, the side effect of that could be PIED. Now, ma'am, I want to talk to you if you've been watching up to this point. If you're a wife of this person, or you're a sex partner of this person, and they can't maintain an erection, or it doesn't feel like they're connected to you during sex, you feel alone and empty during sex, it is 100% not about you. This young man has been doing this stuff probably since 8 or 10 years old. Has nothing to do with your body, has nothing to do with a wrinkle or gray hair, your weight, your color, who you are as a person. He has attached himself, wired himself to a world that you are not a part of. You're a real woman with a real heart, with real sexuality, with real needs, with different sounds, with different ways. And he wasn't supposed to be attaching to all that stuff and learning thousands of people's sexuality. He was supposed to be learning relational sexuality with the real soul, but he didn't. And that's not about you. You know, I'm the father of the partner betrayal trauma movement. I've written more books on partners of sex acts than any person in the world. And those can be very helpful for you to heal. It's not about you. And sometimes this even can create intimacy anorexia, where he's too busy for you. He blames you. He withholds love. He withholds praise. He's critical of you. He uses anger or silence as a way to control. You feel married and alone. And that's someone who has a sex addiction and intimacy anorexia, and they could easily have PIED because they don't really want to connect to a real person. And if you're in that situation, there's a lot of pain, but a lot of information that you can get. Please go to our website and find that out. If you look at partnerbetrayaltrauma.org, a lot of information there. And there's hope, okay? There is hope that you can actually change, and this can be better for both of you. Now, I just said that there's hope. There is hope, but it is work. If someone has a sexual addiction, they're going to have to arrest that, because as long as they keep using pornography, PIED is probably going to stay in their life because you are competing against two sexualities. All right, to heal, you have to join the relational sexuality consistently, okay? And I'm going to talk about that, what you need to do. So, sir, you want to write these 3 tips down, and you want to practice them even if they're uncomfortable up front, because what I'm going to teach you to do right now for free is to attach to her. So when you're having sex, I want you to follow these 3 simple principles, all right? And there's more to learn, but I'll get in that in a second. Number 1, eyes open. You have to look at her when you're being sexual, because when you close your eyes, you are really going to go to the other world. And ma'am, if he's not looking at you, the chances of him attaching to something other than you and use your body is really high. And that will feel very alone to you, and you will not enjoy that. That's actually negative reinforcement of you not to enjoy sex. Eyes open, you can see that he's present with you. Even if he's struggling, he's going to look at you. Number 2, talk. Speak to each other. You need to talk to your wife or your partner. Tell her she's amazing. Tell her that she's beautiful. Tell her that she fulfills you. Tell her that she's satisfying. And I'm going to give you exactly what you can say in a few minutes, or at least learn what to say to her before, during, and after sex based on her sexual expression. There's 5 sexual expressions. I have a book called Upgrade Your Sex Life. I'll talk about it in a second. And you can learn how to speak to her in her own heart's language so that the sexual encounter is so fulfilling for her. And she can learn yours, because part of it is you've created this kind of psychological template, and you are actually designed sexually in a certain way. And if she can figure out what it is you want to hear, and I'm not talking about dirty talk, what you really want to hear in your heart during sex, it can blow you out sexually. It's so fantastic. But make sure you have lights on. Now, it doesn't have to be theatrical lighting like I have here. A simple candle, but enough to see each other. So eyes open, lights on, nurturing conversation. Those 3 tips can move you away from PIED. Now, how long does it take to recover? Well, there's a lot of factors in there. If they're in recovery from sexual addiction, that's a big thing. If they're not, it's going to take forever. If the porn has stopped being used, okay? Consistently being relationally sexual with your spouse is another factor. If you've actually created anxiety, you may actually have to get treated for that as well. So there are some factors that can prolong this process. The fantastic thing about the human body and soul and spirit is we're completely neuroplastic. So you've created this template. And I do have a DVD on sexual templates. It's really worth watching if you struggle with PIED. Now, another thing I'm going to talk to you about, this is a book called Upgrade Your Sex Life. Now, if you're a couple, this will transform your sex life very powerfully and positively. I teach you the 5 sexual expressions. I teach you how to negotiate sexuality, teach you how to really understand each other sexually. This is a huge step in the process of making changes to move away from PIED. Okay, so before you get into trying all these bizarre medicines and supplements, try attachment. Because once you can attach relationally to her, you're going to make huge progress. Okay, and so I encourage you to take steps in this direction to help you with PIED. Now, there's not a lot of research on this because it's kind of a new thing. All right, kids growing up with cell phones and kids growing up literally with porn in their pocket is a new thing. PIED is one of the huge impacts that's going to be going on for the next generations. Because if we continue to take our sexuality and attach it to objects instead of people, and without commitments, without understanding, without nurturing, without support of the whole being sexually, we're going to continue to create detached sexuality, which one of the symptoms is PIED. So please, get the books, get the video, get some help, get some starting. Now, if you've yet to subscribe to our channel, I really want you to take a second, click that button. And if you have a question about this, please write it. Whether you're the man dealing with this, or whether you're the lady who's dealing with the man who you feel is, not into you. He could be totally into you, but has nothing to do with his sexual conditioning he did 10 years before he met you or 15 years before he met you. So please walk through this journey. And if you need help, give us a call at 719-278-3708 and see if we can be of help to you.